Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Sci-Fi Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing another movie review. This is The Batman. Yes, the newest incarnation of Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, and starring Robert Pattison in the role of Bruce Wayne / Batman. So I had low expectations going into this film because, to be honest, I was getting tired of Batman constantly being rebooted and different actors playing the role of Batman and different directors' takes on the Batman, I was a little worn out with it, and I was one of the people who was disappointed with the way they handled the DCEU and all that, hugely disappointed in Batman vs. Superman, and then Justice League further cemented that. So I wasn't all that excited about someone else coming into the role of Batman and a new director's take on it. With that being said, I am going to talk about spoilers, so spoiler warning, I do want to discuss the film. I'm not going to give away some of the huge spoilers, not that there's that many, but I want to talk about the film, So, spoiler warning. If you have not seen The Batman, please do so before you watch this review. With that being said, I had some low expectations, and I didn't have any reservations about Robert Pattison playing the role of Batman, because, I've seen him in a lot of movies outside of Twilight, and I know he was up to the task. I know he's a good actor. The man can act. And, he squashed any doubt, I think, that anybody had, because he did a fantastic job in the role of Batman. And what I liked so much about his take is that this Batman is a tortured soul, This Batman has the weight of the world on his shoulders, He's dealing with this version of Gotham City, which is an absolute cesspool of violence and organized crime, the mob. The mafia basically runs the entire city, They even control the police, the government, everything, The mob controls the city, except for, a few good police officers like, of course, Jim Gordon, who works together with Batman a lot in this movie. And another thing I love about this movie is this is a straight-up detective story. Now, we haven't really seen that full-blown in a Batman movie before, so that was really cool to see because, Batman started out, detective comics. That's what Batman was about. Solving the mysteries and, trying to catch the bad guy and find out who it is and, and that's what this is, and that's really cool. We see Batman tracking down this killer known as the Riddler. And the Riddler in this movie is definitely more of like the classic serial killer from, kind of true crime style movies, that we've seen in the past. And I thought that was a cool way of portraying him, and definitely a different take on the Riddler, and I really enjoyed it, I don't want to see the campy Riddler from the old 60s TV show or the Batman Forever version with Jim Carrey. No, this is a very serious take on the Riddler, and I thought that was really cool, And the actor did a great job. He was scary, And this movie is kind of scary, It does have a little bit of horror elements in there, It's definitely a very, very grim and dark version of Batman. The darkest, I'd say, in the franchise. And that's kind of saying a lot, Some of the other movies were pretty dark, like the Christopher Nolan trilogy was definitely a darker, more realistic take, but none as dark as this one, Like I said, the way they portray Gotham City here is just like, it's almost like The Purge, There's so much crime going on, it's just insane, and you wonder, is Gotham City really worth saving, It's just madness and crime everywhere, It's the way the mafia controls the city, and it's just a disgrace, it's that was a cool, interesting take. We never really got to see that much of Gotham City in the movies before. This really delves kind of deep into the underbelly of the organized crime, and I liked seeing Colin Farrell as the Penguin, the way he's just so completely unrecognizable. There's no way, if you didn't know that was Colin Farrell, that you would think it's Colin Farrell, Not just the heavy makeup and prosthetics, but his voice is unrecognizable too, You don't hear that Colin Farrell voice or any of his Irish accent or anything in there, He looks just like Al Capone, and that's kind of, I think, where they got the inspiration for his character. It was Al Capone, I think. And that's exactly the vibes that I got, anyway. And, yeah. He did a great job, and I just love the makeup job there. Really cool. I love the look of Batman in this movie. He looks badass, and he is badass, This Batman kicks serious ass. And he's similar to the Ben Affleck Batman in that respect, as he just pummels the criminals into submission, He's a brutal Batman, kick-ass Batman. You do not want to mess with this version of Batman. He will whoop you into submission. At one point, he just beats a guy to a bloody pulp and just almost to the point of killing him, So you might say this version of Batman is almost more like a vigilante. But, we have seen that before with, like, the Ben Affleck Batman and stuff like that. But this version, like I said, is a more tormented individual, Not only his past with his parents, obviously being murdered, that's obviously taken a tremendous effect on how he sees the world and how he lives his life, It's always in the back of his mind, his parents being murdered in front of him, We don't really see that in the movie, but they do delve into the background of his parents, and a lot of it is kind of dark, and, it's not all good, Some of the stuff that his parents were involved in, you're like, that's, they were kind of involved with the mafia at one point. And he doesn't even know that. He doesn't find that out until later on in the movie, and you're like, wow, all this time. He gets pissed off at Alfred. Alfred, in this film, does a great job. He's played by Andy Serkis in the film. And they have a great relationship. It's just classic Alfred and Bruce Wayne, But Alfred doesn't tell him all the details about his parents. He doesn't find out until he starts delving deeper into the mafia, to find out who this killer is. Because we know he's kind of tied into the mafia, and in dealing with all these scumbag criminals, he finds out more about his parents and what went on and how they were involved loosely in the mafia too. And that just really sinks him into a deep depression, And along the way he meets Catwoman, of course. And Catwoman works for the mafia, and the head of the mafia, Carmine Falcone, I believe his name was, played by John Turturro. She's like, we find out her issues and how she's involved. And, it's classic Catwoman. She walks that fine line between villain and superhero, At first she is kind of the villain, but, along the way, we see that she has good intentions, that she wants to help, and she wants to help stop the criminals and the underground mafia and everything. And Batman sees that in her. And, it's that classic relationship. He kind of falls for her, They have a little bit of romance going on. There's sparks flying. Another thing I'll say about Robert Pattinson's version of Batman is when we see Bruce Wayne, he's not all that different from Batman. He doesn't make a very clear distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman. When he's Bruce Wayne, the torment is still there. You know, he's still a very depressed, very distraught individual. But, you know, he is a billionaire still. But, you know, he still has the weight of the world on his shoulders and everything. As far as the action scenes go in this movie, they're fantastic. Like I said, the fight scenes, whenever Batman's fighting, he's just whooping ass, you know. And there's an awesome car chase scene, you know, when we finally see Batman, the new version of the Batmobile. You know, you hear the rev of the engine, it's like, and then the headlights go on, you're like, yeah. Like the sound and the intensity of it, and the car chase scene is just awesome. Like, woo. At one point, when he's chasing the Penguin, and the Penguin heads straight into oncoming traffic head on, and it's like, whoa, whoa, you know, it gets crazy, you know. At one point, the Batmobile goes up the ramp of a truck and, like, jumps in through the fire, and you're like, yeah, this is awesome. I loved it. And there's one awesome scene when the Penguin, his car flips like 30 times, and he's upside down in the car, and you see Batman come through the fire, and he's like it's like a really cool, like, upside down shot, beautifully directed, you know. And yeah, Matt Reeves does an excellent job in this film. The direction is just flawless. It's beautifully shot, very artistically and creatively shot, and that's kind of what makes this film stand out from some of the other versions of Batman. We don't see one single shot in the daytime, which is really cool and interesting. So, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was an excellent film, and it got me excited about Batman. I haven't been excited about Batman in a long time, so definitely check it out, guys. It's definitely a worthy entry in the franchise. It brings Batman back to prominence. And yeah, I look forward to seeing more. I hope that they continue this version of Batman for a long time. You know, I want to see him take on the mantle of Batman and have one guy play Batman for a long time, because I'm tired of seeing it rebooted, you know, and he's young enough, he can play Batman for a long time. So that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Sci-Fi Corner. Tune in and stay scared.